Now, the topic we're going to get into is addiction. I chose to talk about addiction because it has shaped my life in ways I've never expected. My biological family has struggled with addiction, and if you're watching this, chances are someone in your life has too. When you ask someone, what is something that can be addictive and unhealthy, you might get the answer food, games, gambling, or even drugs. But what even is an addiction in general? Addiction is an actual condition that leads to compulsive or not having control of taking a substance or an action, even if it has negative consequences. But you might be asking, hey Kevin, why is this? Well, let's dig deeper. Well, let's look at your brain. Your brain has a system called the reward system. The reward system gets triggered every time you do something good that can help with your survival. And the way this is triggered, by your brain releasing a chemical called dopamine. But there is one big problem with this chemical. Dopamine is highly addictive. Even though it's released naturally, you can get addicted to it. A lot of people are addicted to it. That's why people started finding faster and easier ways to get it released. The most common ways people use to get dopamine are gambling, food, games, drugs, or even bullying. Yes, bullying. It is true that when someone puts someone else down, it can boost their ego. And when someone gets their ego boosted, it can release the chemical dopamine, causing the reward system to trigger again. And when they realize this feels good, they'll keep doing it just to make themselves feel better. But that's not even a horrible addiction. There's way worse, like gambling and drugs. And yes, drugs, a lot of people know are addictive, but a lot of people ask the question, how can gambling be addictive? Well, let's think about it. Let's say you're at a casino, or better yet, to fit this audience, let's say you're at an arcade. You're playing a luck game, like that bass wheel game. I'll put a picture on the screen. You spin the wheel, you win a little bit of tickets, not a lot. You spin again, you win a little more. Now you're like, oh yeah, let me keep playing, so I'll win more. You end up winning less, but you're like, all right, one more try to regain my profit. You gain more, and then that keeps on cycling. But when you get those big wins, it releases dopamine in your brain saying, oh yeah, I want to do this again, which keeps on triggering the reward system, causing you to keep on gambling and gambling. Now, gambling is a serious addiction. People lose their houses, jobs, and like lives to it. But there's something way more serious that even ends lives. Drugs. Drugs are highly addictive, and their main purpose is to release that chemical dopamine from your brain to always trigger that reward system. And this is why drugs are highly addictive. But you might be saying, hey, what about cannabis? There's no addictive chemical in cannabis. Well, let's think about anything. Anything in the world can be addictive. Video games. There's no chemical in video games that are addictive. But when you play a video game, you get that same release of dopamine, which triggers that reward system. So that's the same thing with cannabis. Cannabis changes your state of mind into a more euphoric state. Same with a lot of other psychedelics that don't have an addictive chemical in them. But there are some that do, most of them being antidepressants. Let's talk about a common one, Xanax or benzos. These are meant to release a large amount of dopamine from your brain, but the only reason why they should be taken is when a person has a lack of dopamine being released. But some people get their hands on these drugs illegally when they're not needed, having a normal amount of dopamine being released normally, but when they take it, it releases more and more. But here's a bigger problem. After your body gets so used to dopamine being released by this other chemical, it feels like it doesn't have the need to release its own. So when you're without this substance, or you don't have enough of this substance, you won't feel right inside. You'll actually be depressed, unlike you were before, which can really affect the human because it will ruin the amount of dopamine they'll get released, and it will happen for a long period. And if they are without the substance, it will cause something called withdrawals. Now, what are withdrawals? Withdrawals are a bunch of symptoms ranging from anxiety, tremors, nausea, to hallucinations, and frequent seizures. brought on by the sudden stoppage or dosage of a long-term drug use. But here's the thing, when you try to get an actual definition, a lot of it will just be telling you it's from drug use, or just people will tell you it's from drug use. But the truth is, you can get withdrawals from any addiction. Now let's look at the definition of addiction from Psychology Today. At the end of their definition, it says, but all are caused by disruptions in the brain's accustomed pathway of nerve activity. But when we look at a website like White Light, which is a drug and alcohol rehab center in Columbus, Ohio, we see they say addiction primarily affects the brain's reward system, altering the natural dopamine pathways responsible for pleasure and reinforcement. And also shown on the website, when that addiction is taken away, meaning any addiction, including games, gambling, and drugs, the brain struggles, withdrawals happen. Just like with drugs, irritability, anxiety, cravings, the brain craves the dopamine rush that it's lost. Every addiction changes in the brain's pathway. When those habits stop, withdrawals kick in. But the brain can heal. Breaking addiction starts with understanding it. From all this, we can take away that addiction is a horrible thing, but it happens to most people. The best way is to just avoid it, but for some people, that's not possible. Quitting can be hard, but it's possible with the right support.